Hey everybody, now I'm back to share a little bit about the point where we moved from Port Huron, Michigan to the Florida Keys. Now, before we left Port Huron, it seemed like we were having a pretty good time. My dad had kind of his own little music scene. I think the way he put it, like their house was the music scene for people that want to listen to industrial music. And so um, I think it was a very important time in music history as far as stuff like industrial music coming along. And him and his friends were already listening to stuff like Cabaret Voltaire and Throbbing Gristle, and they were really inspired by this music. And they were probably going to go on to do something like that. And so I like to think that if we would have stayed in Port Huron, there was no doubt me and my dad would have been making industrial music or what they called post-industrial. Maybe we would have been part of the music scene that came later that had stuff like Ministry and Frontline Assembly and all that. But my mom, she was also doing her own thing, and she had gone out to play in a cover band, and they got jobs being like the house band at a bar off in Wisconsin and in Minnesota. Well, when my mom came back from that trip, my dad was really shit faced, and I think he was just really upset that he got stuck home alone with the kids, and she had been gone for too long. So I don't know what the fight was about, but I think she ended up in the hospital with a concussion or something like that, and they were getting really close to breaking up over this big fight they had. Otherwise, it's such a sad shame that we left Michigan for Florida. Because here's the thing: my grandma Smith had gone to Florida to retire. Now I did get a chance to meet her and see her old house before she left too, so I kind of had an idea who she was. We made the trip to Key West to get my sister. She went down to spend the summer, and so I had an idea who my grandma was. And but yeah, she really wanted to help us out because it's like, hey, you guys, the way my grandma sees it, with my parents trying to get into the music business and everything, they were partying too much, and because of that, it resulted in this accident or this incident. And so she felt that if she could get us to move down there where she could be close to us, she would help keep my parents on track. And so, for the most part, she's right, that she did really help keep us on track. My parents were always working. They were always able to keep rent paid and always had food, so we had everything going in the right direction for that reason. But we had to pack up and leave. So before we left, we did have a big concert in our backyard, and I think we got the cops called on us by the Hoovers, fuckers. Anyways, yeah, I used to go across the street and play with the Hoovers kids, but they didn't. I think they should have just let us have our goddamn party, for God's sake. We were leaving, and my parents had a big yard sale, sold off a lot of things. And so we put everything we could in this little trailer, and we had our dogs and our cats, and so we had to leave Michigan to go live in Florida. And on the way down, I think we stayed the night in Tennessee at a campground there that had a beautiful pond. And so the next morning, we got up, and I saw ducks on the pond, and that's when I realized I must have a duck. I must have a duck. So when we got to Florida, um, we went and stayed at my grandma Smith's house for a little bit, and they had a nice little place, like a 2-bedroom house with a screened-in room in the back. And down in Florida, there's a lot of places where you park your car in the front and you park your boat in the back. And the way they accomplished that is by building canals. So we had a canal that went from my grandma's house on out to the Gulf of Mexico. So like a good 2 or 3 block long canal. Really nice place to go for swim. So some of my best memories were there at my grandma Smith's house. Um, so yeah, she had a big yard. It was filled with coconut trees. She had these cool little pathways with gardens in them, and one yard, and then the other yard was filled with the bird aviaries. So yeah, it was like a little jungle at her house. So she had a really cool place and everything. But then when we got our first place, it was a 3-bedroom house trailer on Golf Drive, 52 Golf Drive there. It's like a dirt road with some potholes in it. And so yeah, I remember being at this trailer, and just me and my sister there in the living room. When I was, okay, so 6 years old, I got transferred from kindergarten in Michigan to kindergarten in Key West. So I was also like the new kid, by the way, so we're new there. in this ugly little trailer, and I'm asking my sister, is this where we're gonna live, or are we just staying here till we get an actual house? Because we just moved from a 2-story, 3-bedroom house with a basement to this trailer. And she goes, nope, this is where we're gonna live. And I was like really bummed out, like, oh no, what a nightmare. So I was already disappointed in the house. But I've got to say, we've had some really great times there at this house. And because of our relationship with my grandma, so the Florida Keys is a very unique part of the United States, and I really appreciate that part of my life. So, moving from Michigan to Florida for me was actually very exciting. But as time went on, we really missed our friends in Michigan, and it seemed like there's nobody like that in Key West that we could bond with and have people coming over that listen to industrial music. Instead, it was more like my dad's would party with his brothers, and they usually would listen to more like rock and roll, David Bowie, the Kinks, things like this. And so that was a really fun year where I think that I got a trampoline, had a pretty good Christmas, and so yeah, I used to really love to jump on that trampoline, and my cousins would come over and we'd play. So, anyways, I wanted to just talk a little bit about that transition from Michigan to Florida, because what was happening there, it seemed like we were leaving our music scene behind to go and focus more on, keeping my parents, my parents on task, so that they would. My grandma Smith did a really big favor to us by helping us stay on track, as so to speak. So we were always in school. My parents were always working, and so I think my parents did considerably well considering some of the hardship we had. Some of the struggle they had. I think we did exceptionally well. So I'm going to share a little bit more about my first years of living in the Florida Keys in my very next video. Talk to you then. You guys have a good day.